So I'm Laura Downey. I'm the director of KACEE, and on behalf of KACEE and MEEA, we'd like to welcome you to tonight's event. And we would very much like to thank our event sponsors tonight, Gleason of Greater Kansas City, and also Gleason of Kansas. And so we're super thankful to them for helping to offset some of the costs of tonight's event, and hope that you'll stop by and check them out.
Nice. Thanks, Laura. And I'm Leslie Moylan, the director of the Missouri Environmental Education Association, and super excited to be doing this series of monthly events, and thrilled that MEEA and Parker are here as our co-presenters. And I just wanted to share before they introduce themselves, if you're not familiar with AmeriCorps and AmeriCorps Vista, MEEA and Parker are both AmeriCorps Vista members this year, and it's basically people giving a year of service. Giving an entire year of service nationally. And we are super, super lucky to have them on our team. And I'm sure you're going to enjoy the next hour getting to know about some stuff that they're both really passionate about. So thank you, MEEA and Parker, for sharing your expertise and helping us live out our values. Thank you. Take it away.
All right. My name is Stacy Parker. I go by Parker, and like Leslie said, I am AmeriCorps Vista. A complete change for me. Last 20 years I spent in higher ed, specifically student affairs and School of Education at Carolina, Michigan, and USC. And so I returned home to St. Louis to kind of give back to my community through the AmeriCorps Vista program.
Hi, everyone. I'm MEEA. It's like papaya with an M if you get confused. Also one of the Vistas, and I graduated last year from St. Louis University, so I have a degree in anthropology with minors in Mandarin, global and local social justice, and visual communication. And I joined because I was looking to connect more with Missouri, which I've only lived in for a couple of years, and learn more about community building. And it's been a really good experience so far. Already halfway through.
Right?
Yeah. So we will get started here. And thank you to everyone who participated in the little quiz we had. If you're curious, so the first one is the trans flag. The second one is LGBT, like kind of an umbrella flag. And the third one is the bisexual flag. So both of you were kind of right. They are kind of all different kinds of pride flags. They do have different meanings. But I'm going to welcome you all to this introduction of Safe Zone. And today we are going to focus on allyship and terminology. And I did not change the slide. Here we go. Go ahead, Parker.
Okay. All right. So yeah, this is a Safe Zone. We're doing an activity which is in usually appears in like a Safe Zone training. So this isn't a full-blown training. It is a part of it. It's going to be a terminology match. But we're doing this because we know a lot of you all work with students. You all have colleagues. And so what we want to do is give you all some tools to help make your students feel more comfortable and included in your classrooms and your colleagues in your workspaces. So again, this is just a little bit of this is like a little segment of the larger workshop, which usually lasts a couple, like 4 or 5 hours. All right, so we kind of want to know who's here, and if you don't mind, we're going to do a quick whip around. And if you can tell us your chosen name, and I say chosen name because it's a name that you choose and wasn't given to you. A lot of people say preferred name. I would say chosen. I think it's a little bit more of a punch. It's like, this is the name I want to go by. So your chosen name and your pronoun. And again, if you don't feel comfortable with those, just kind of let us know who you are in a way that feels comfortable to you. So my name is Stacy Parker. I like going by Parker, and my pronouns either she or they.
And I'm Malaya, and my pronouns are she and her.
And let's see, who's next? We have Leslie. Sorry, I don't want to call people.
You're fine. Leslie Moylan, she, her.
Okay. Laura.
Laura Downey, she, her pronouns, please.
Okay. And I don't want to mess up your name. Is it Ryan?
It is Ryan.
Ooh.
Yes. So Ryan and she, her pronouns, please.
Okay, Ashlyn.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ashlyn Kite Hartwick. I work for KACEE and she and her pronouns.
Okay. Tanya.
Hi, I'm Tanya Brownlee. I work for the Wichita State University Environmental Finance Center, and my pronouns are she and her.
Okay. Ashley.
Hi, I'm Ashley and she, her.
Mike. Sorry.
I'm Mike Rader, work with Department of Wildlife Parks and Tourism, and he, his.
Mm-hmm. Jolene.
I'm Jolene Amtower. I work for KACEE and I'm a she, her.
Morgan.
Hi, I'm Morgan, and I also work for KACEE, and my pronouns are she and her.
Shelby. Okay, we'll come back. Heather. Oh, you're muted.
There we go. Hi, I'm Heather Lansdowne. I work with the State Department of Agriculture. I'm not in higher ed, but I used to be, and I'm just affiliated with, I know KACEE through some other things. I heard about this workshop.
Sarah.
Hey guys, I'm Sarah Holmes. My pronouns are she, hers, and I am a teacher at the Barstow School.
Okay. Michelle.
Hello, I'm Michelle DeHaven. I work for the Wichita State University Environmental Finance Center. My pronouns are she, her.
Okay. And Marla has already given us their pronouns. Marla, or her pronouns. Marla, is that your chosen name?
Hey, yeah, Marla's my chosen name and
Okay.
she, her.
Okay. And Rachel.
Hey, Rachel Wally with KACEE. I'm the Green School coordinator for Kansas, and I am she, hers, and excited to listen in.
Awesome. Okay. All right. Thank you all. We're going to go now and talk about our agreements. This is how we're going to kind of the guidelines for having these conversations. And you can, I was like, go ahead, let me do that. But thank you for being brave and sharing your chosen name and your pronouns.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Yeah, so we're going to go over a couple of things, a couple of group norms to kind of set up what kind of space we want to have today in our discussions. So I'll go over ours first. Then if you have others that you want to add in, please feel free to put it in the chat and we'll address them so everyone can see. The first one is what is learned here, leaves here, and what's shared here stays here. You may know this as like the Vegas rules. We want people to feel protected, to share their stories and feelings, and what you learn from that may or should definitely leave. You should take that with you. But the person and their experience should stay within this space that we're making today. Second one is step up, step back. So recognize when and if you're taking up a lot of space. In the virtual sense, pretty much just mean if you're talking a lot or if your audio or video is distracting. So if so, you may need to take a step back, go on mute, turn off your video, whatever you may need to do. Or on the other side of that, maybe you don't talk a lot, or maybe you do have to have your video off, and that may cause you to be overlooked when we're sharing. So because of that, feel free to step up, unmute yourself, speak out more, put it in the chat too if that helps. Number 3 is both and. So this can kind of be used as like a self-awareness tool as well. So, people are complex. It's possible for someone to be, maybe really humble and really generous, but then also like really transphobic or something, right? Like just because someone has a marginalized identity maybe doesn't necessarily mean they can't be like prejudiced towards other people. So keeping that in mind of where you're coming from. Our 4th is intent and impact. So this is also sometimes known as the ouch and oops rule. So if something is said that makes you feel uncomfortable, feel free to name that impact, and the other person or persons can share their intent. That's usually a good place to start to find a resolution if need be. Next is provide a path to good graces. So along with this, realize that people are at all different stages of learning and feeling. So if you can, allow some way for them to reach forgiveness and get to that point. Next is brave space. So sort of a step ahead of safe space, which I think we hear a lot. So this is kind of meaning to be brave in asking questions or sharing in discussion and keeping all these kind of guidelines in mind so that this can be a space where it's okay to make a mistake as long as you can learn from it. To kind of be brave to make mistakes. No one's perfect, right? We're all trying to learn, trying to do better. And then finally, speak from your own experience. So it's great when you share, we love it, but be sure that it's relevant and a story that's close and impactful for you. It's not always helpful when it's, your brothers, aunties, neighbors, grandson, right? It's a little far from our discussion that we're trying to have of us all together. And I'll pass it back to Parker.
All right. Do anyone have any comments or additions or to make to the agreements?
Yes, sorry, I can't see the chat because I'm sharing the screen, so I totally forgot about that.
So we said the first grader sharing room. Okay. All right. Are we good with that? Can we do a thumbs up if everyone's okay with the agreements? Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
All right. It's quiz time. So it's going to be, this isn't, I'm going to preface this with saying that this is a longer quiz, but given the time that we have, we chose 10 terms to kind of discuss within this session and anticipating a lot of discussion around these terms. So we only picked 10 so we can have some robust discussion. So we're going to put the quiz in the chat. My more tech-savvy colleague is going to toss that in the chat. And then, let's see, there's a good number of us here. So I think what we're going to do is create some small breakout groups. And you'll all have like 15 minutes to work through the quiz. And you can work together. It's a group project. And then we're going to come back together and give you the answers and then have a little discussion about each one. Okay, I think we're all back. All right. Answer time. Yep. How many of you all found that kind of challenging? I'm going to admit the first time I'm sorry?
I said, I'm glad there was a word bank.
Right. Yeah, the first time I did, I was like, I felt like I should know these things, and I did not. But yeah, it's all about learning. So what we're going to do now is take volunteers and do answer time. So And this is like anybody who wants to respond. And so when you do respond to the item, just read the definition as well. So, and then we can, if it generates some discussion, we'll have a little bit of discussion about it. So I am taking volunteers. I know you all got them all right because you had this look on your faces when you got back. You're like ready to share that knowledge.
I was on Team Morgan, so we're good.
All right. Okay. So who wants to go first? Who wants to kick us off?
Let's start.
Okay.
So number one, the statement was term used to refer to the way one's sex is classified as at birth as male, female, or intersex based on anatomical, chromosomal, and hormonal characteristics. And we put assigned sex at birth, E.
Congratulations.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. Who's next? Okay. All right.
Ryan?
So, go ahead. Someone's talking.
Oh, did you raise your hand? Sorry. Were you just stretching?
Oh, I did.
Okay. Go for it.
Okay. So number 2 refers to people who are born with any range of sex characteristics that may not fit a doctor's notions of binary male or female bodies. Some traits are identified at birth, while others may not be discovered until puberty or later in life. We answered D, intersex.
Exactly right. About 1 in 2,000 births. Yeah, it's very common. Very common. All right. Who's next?
I'll go. The number 3, the gender an individual identifies as psychologically, regardless of what gender they were assigned at birth. And we went with B, gender identity.
Excellent. All right. Number 4.
Okay, I'll go for it. Number 4, how someone performs or expresses themselves in appearance, behavior, speech, or other mannerisms. This may or may not be analogous to their gender identity. We said G, gender expression.
Exactly right. Has anyone heard of Judith Butler? Feminist scholar. She writes a lot about performing your gender. Yeah, there you go, Michelle. Okay. Who wants to go next?
Okay, I can go. Number 5, we were on a term sometimes used within Native American communities to refer to someone who self-identifies as having both male and female genders or having a gender other than that assigned at birth. We went with C, two-spirit.
That is correct. And there are some other terms that the communities use to describe, like for instance, an African American community, the term was same gender loving. And it had a lot to do with the decentering of whiteness. And that's a whole, in the workshop, the longer workshop, you'll learn about how different groups have come up with their own terms to kind of, that they can own, that is separate from what they felt is like white-centered sexuality. All right. All right, so a term used to describe and identify that encompasses both male and female, neither male nor female, or beyond male and female. What is that one?
A?
Yes.
Non-binary.
Exactly. Yes.
What is beyond male or female?
That's a whole concept. That is like, you know how people say like post-structuralist or post, it's like transcends gender or sex. And it's just, it's a huge concept of, oh my gosh. Okay. So I can't remember their names. There's a community in Japan that actually practices this, and they say they transcend all of that. And so they have names that are neutral in Japanese, and they dress in a way that would kind of in a I guess a gender he's saying gender neutral. Yeah, they dress in a way that you really couldn't like socially, guess their gender in a socially constructed kind of way. There is a very small community in Japan that does this. I cannot think of their names right now, but they transcend. Oh, I'm going to find the name of it. It's like now messing with me. I always said I was going to go and join their community.
Do it. Send us pictures. I think the idea is to like not be on the spectrum. So if you think of like a gender spectrum, you're beyond that. You don't need to be on, left or right or middle or whatever. You're just not on it.
Yeah. I know, it kind of like,
Yeah.
like,
I know it's hard to think of like how do you opt out?
Right. An umbrella term used to describe a loose association of people who transgress gender norms in a wide variety of ways, used also to refer to people whose gender identity differs from their assigned sex at birth. What is that?
Yeah. Transgender?
Yes. And the group I was in, we had like a brief conversation about transmasculine and transfeminine. Those are slightly different concepts. That's something we delve into like in the workshop, but those are also options for folks with an X on the end. That's a whole other conversation too. Okay.
Wait, I want to hear about the folks with the X on the end, because that always confuses me.
Okay, so folks with an X on the end, I started using it when I was told by some queer friends and that's another word we'll talk about. That's like on the West Coast, in the South. So it kind of denotes like everyone, where folks was seen as very exclusive to certain people. Folks with an X on the end is like everyone, all genders, everyone, everywhere. And so folks was kind of used in place of guys. Like you hear a lot of people say you guys, and guys is always like the default. So they started using folks, and they started using folks with the X. So we like make sure that we're including everyone. And by the way, yeah, and like guys is the default. And one time I actually used girls as a default, and people just like lost it. And I'm like, why is it okay to use guys as a default for everyone and not girls? Just saying, just putting that out there. So what I use, like if people receive like emails from me, sometimes when I say folks, I do put the X on the end. So.
Mm-hmm. Did it come from like, I know that like it's Latinx, because in Spanish speaking culture, like female is A and male is O. And so it was just like, boom, we're not doing either one.
And I had a colleague at Carolina who is from Peru, and he said that was a marker of colonization, that someone would come in and change their language, that they want the O and they want the A. And that's a sign of colonialism or imperialism.
Boy, see, and there's an example of how this language changes all the time, because
because I was doing it all the time, Latinx, and I was like doing a good thing, like women with an X, MEX, and it takes one person to say, hey, why did you do that? And I'll explain why, and then they'll give me a different perspective. And I appreciate those folks to take they take the time to kind of like, oh, hey, why did you know? To give me something to consider. But yeah, I was like a Latinx person like all day long. And then I heard that perspective and I was like, okay, that gives me something to think about. I thought it was a great thing, but not really, not to some folks, So I try not to use it unless I see them use it. And then I'll use it because I don't want to be the Latin, and then they'll say Latino/A. And if I see that, I usually put Latina/A/O, and if they have X, I'll put X. Yeah.
That's a similar story for Filipino, because our originally pre-colonial, our language didn't really have genderized, like L and La, right? Like we don't really have genderized language. But then after being colonized, we did. So then mostly it's Filipino Americans who are like, we need X on the end. And then Filipinos are like, but our language isn't supposed to be genderized. We should be able to just use our language and it should be. So it's a whole thing. So yeah, it's just safer to just be like, OAX. Yeah. So for the group that I volunteer with, we just say OAX, just cover everyone.
Yeah. I mean, and these are the things that keep conversations at a standstill, or they don't get started because you're so afraid to offend someone, right? And then it's like you start having that conversation, and in our agreements, we said, provide a path back to good graces, right? If a person makes a mistake and they, just give them some space to come back. Don't shut them out. They want to have a conversation, and they're learning. So yeah, I mean, I learn something new every time I do something like this, some type of workshop, or I get with the group. I always learn something more. Identifying a certain way doesn't give you the omniscient knowledge of that. So I believe we have 3 more. The term used to refer to a person whose gender identity aligns with the assigned sex at birth. That is
Cis.
There you go. Cisgender. All right. And let's see, the last 2. A term that refers to how someone self-identifies their sexual feelings and desires and or who they are open to being in a sexual relationship with is
Sexual orientation.
Mm-hmm. And then the last one is a term that refers to how someone self-identifies their romantic feelings. And that one is
romantic.
Right. They used to use the term attractional. So they would say bi-attractional or this attractional. They wanted to distinguish between the sex and attraction, romantic attraction. So I think that's this is a furthering of that idea. And that's just how much it's changed in the last couple of years. Because I definitely remember people saying bi-attractional, and now it's something else. So to distinguish. All right. That wasn't that difficult.
May I ask a question, Parker?
Sure.
So the use of romantic identification is to distinguish between your sexual attraction. Help me out with that a little bit more. What's the difference between that and being sexually attracted to somebody?
I want to use an example, but it's probably a little risque for this group. From just I've been with college students for the last 20 years, so nothing was off limits. But think of it as if you think of it like the sex as yes, my body could perform that act. It might not mean anything. Right? I can do that. Rather no, I'm really emotionally, romantically attracted to this person. Sex might not be there, but there's something in my heart. I'm really attracted to this person. Something a little bit deeper. Yep. And we talked about, in my group, we talked about amorous relationships, which is also really big on college campuses, to where people kind of define their roles within those relationships. And so you might have a primary who you're attracted to. Like, you might have a romantic and sexual relationship with your primary, but with your secondary, your primary might be romantically attracted, but not necessarily someone that they would want to engage with physically or sexually.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for the PG version too. That's pretty
No,
impressive.
This is how I keep the poker face when folks are talking to me about these things. I'm like, like, a lot of practice. But yeah, that's I mean, it's happening a lot on college campuses, and a lot of counselors are being trained in that type of therapy. So it's a thing. All right, you all did well. And again, this was like the shortened version of the quiz. Like, we just took the first 10 terms. The full quiz has 9 more, and I said those are the ones that tripped me up when I was training to do this. I'm like,
Yeah,
so,
I felt like you took it easy on us. I was like, whew.
yeah, the other ones were like, at one point, I just said, I don't even know anymore. But no, it was really good learning. You know, and this is a brave space, so you know, we need to move forward. So, all right, I think.
Can you say something a little bit? Because this is one that, like, I don't know, and I hear it a lot, and I just feel like I don't know how it differs from some of the other terms. Queer, that's so broad, right?
I use that as a descriptor for myself. It's just, yeah, for me, it's a broad definition. And if you look at a lot of college students today, they don't kind of lock themselves in. They're just who they are, and they're going to be with who they're going to be with.
Yeah.
A great show to kind of understand a concept is Euphoria. Great show. The trans actress on the show is actually from Raleigh, North Carolina, and yeah, it's really cool. But it's a great show to understand just the sexuality of teenagers. They're all in high school, and just how they kind of define themselves, and you know. But yeah, I use that term not so much anymore. Not since leaving California, because it has a different meaning. Like, and when I got to Carolina, and they were like, it's like the N-word. And I'm like, really? Okay, let me stop saying it then, you know? Or like here in like Missouri, and I say, and they're like, yeah. So I'm like, what am I supposed to say? You know, I'm gonna think of something cool. Okay. I'll say I'm a unicorn. I don't know. But yeah. So queer is like a catch-all for a lot of folks. And a lot of people say it's a reclaiming of the word. Like, a lot of women have taken back like the B word or things like that. It's like, we're going to reclaim it, and you know, we're going to use it in a different kind of way. So, all right. So we are.
I was just gonna say, I appreciate the candid and like lighthearted conversation. Because I think I'll speak for myself. Sometimes I get so nervous that I'm gonna like misidentify somebody or offend somebody, and so I don't know. It's helpful to like go through the terms, but then also just have it be such an open and candid conversation. So I appreciate it.
Oh yeah, yeah. Malaya and I didn't want anyone to feel like, you know. So, all right. So we are.
I was just gonna say, I appreciate the candid and like lighthearted conversation. Because I think I'll speak for myself. Sometimes I get so nervous that I'm gonna like misidentify somebody or offend somebody, and so I don't know. It's helpful to like go through the terms, but then also just have it be such an open and candid conversation. So I appreciate it.
Oh yeah, yeah. Malaya and I didn't want anyone to feel like, you know, they were being judged or anything. I mean, this is how, you know, again, this is how conversations don't get started, or they don't continue, because people are made to feel some kind of way, when they participate in these type of sessions. So we appreciate you all coming out, so.
Yeah, definitely.
Also to add to,
learning opportunities. Oh, I'm so sorry.
oh no, I just appreciate, I was just going to say, to add on to what Morgan said, I appreciate like the matching. I know I was not my most present because I'm dropping Avery off, but like when you give stories, it helps me like it helped like, so the stories that you share are way more, I mean, even just what you shared about yourself, it's like, oh, noted, locked in, we're good. So I just appreciate when you can put it into a context. It's really cool, helpful.
Remember that for next time. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Do we have a way of finding out who on this call wants to find out about the
Yes.
full
So
workshop?
we are going to our next slide. It's the Ally Pledge. And so in the longer workshop, there's an actual pledge you sign and you get this like little door tag, and then, your students and colleagues and everyone knows that you're a person that you come to for support. And there's a link that we can send out to where we can like send you a sticker and all that. And so there's the next one. The next slide, the last slide. We were just going to kind of gauge interest in the Safe Zone training. So that is the longer 4-hour one. It goes way deep. There's a lot of cultural aspects that get in there. Like, yeah, you can be racist and a lesbian. That happens. I mean, it's just like it goes kind of deep. There's like layers, and a lot of people get blown away in that one. So yeah, we're just kind of like filling out some interest in participating in a longer workshop, and then that one's a little bit more, I would say, intense. Still the same supportive environment. It's just that there's a lot of oh my goodness moments that folks have in it in that session, that workshop. I think it's worthwhile. So yeah.
I'm interested.
Hey, awesome. Yeah. It's an eye opener. I went through it a couple of years ago, and just a lot of data, a lot of information on how oppressions like kind of reproduce themselves and things like that. What's it like to have we had a ability group, and they identified as queer, and they talked about being someone who uses a wheelchair and then being queer and then trying to date and things like that, being Muslim and being gay, like it's a multi-layered multi-layered training. It's just again, and so that's something that we can offer if there's enough interest